Hi, my name is Gordy Hogue, and this is Community Connection. Each of us have stories that help us understand each other and help to bring our community closer together. I have been very fortunate to have met many interesting people who've had a positive, profound impact on our community and far beyond. People who've had incredible life experiences and fascinating stories. Community Connections is about these people and about their stories. I'm sure you'll enjoy meeting these amazing people as much as I have. Thank you. Please enjoy. Welcome to Community Connections. My name is Gordy Hogue, and when we reflect back on the evolution and development of what most people would agree is one of the better places in the world to live, there are certain pioneering families whose names come to mind. And one of those names is the Breaks family. And they have been one of those families who have contributed so much to our community. They've ensured that we have that sense of connectedness, that sense of caring that's so important within a community. So I'm delighted today to have as our guest the owner, along with his wife Juanita, of Blue Frog Studios, the internationally acclaimed Blue Frog Studios that brings fame to our community throughout the world. Welcome, Kelly.
Well, thank you, Gord. Thanks for having me on today. Appreciate it.
It's a delight to have you here. And can you talk a little bit about your family and growing up in the community and the many contributions that the Breaks family and many of its iterations have had on the evolution and development of Surrey? And
sure. Well, my grandfather, Fred Breaks, I believe he was the first realtor in White Rock back in the 1940s. And he tried to get rezoning to build a two-story high-rise in the town center, but even back then, councils were tough on developers. And then it was too early for timeshares in those days too. So he did the next best thing. He took advantage of a post-war wedding boom and became the Justice of the Peace. So he needed an office. So he went down to the best place in White Rock. I mean, everywhere in White Rock is great, but the best place is Five Corners, and arguably. Oh, yeah. And he had a piece of property right where the five roads met there. And his property was right where Laura's used to be, or now where Taka's Sushi is, right on the corner. And so he built himself an office, and it was Justice of the Peace and Breaks Realty. So he operated out of there for years. And I guess he was there. People were starting to come up from the water because most of the commerce was down on Marine Drive in those days. And I think it was a barber came and said, "Hey, could you build me a store right beside you, our building?" And so he added on a spot for the barber, and then a shoe store came, and then I think a grocery store came. And finally, they kept adding on till the very final store in that row was Shaw's Feed and Tack, I think.
Feed and Seed, yep. Shaw's Feed and Seed. And I remember
Feed and Seed, yeah.
The barber along there too was Art Hawks, yeah. I think was the first barber in there that was a part of it.
Yeah, and so that became known as the Breaks Block and ran for many years, and it's now, I think it's Ocean View apartments or condos, or townhouses. Anyways, beautiful spot down there. Meanwhile, my dad and his two brothers, Jack and Bill Breaks, they started Breaks Brothers bulldozing because they had a farm out in Hazelmere Valley, and they needed to clear their land to do farming. And so they bought a bulldozer, and they started going out and remember that it was all trees and bush in the Semiahmoo Peninsula, well, everywhere in Surrey back in those days. And so they started getting more machines, and they got very busy with their bulldozers, and they opened up a shop at the corner of King George Highway and Johnson Road. So I guess kitty corner from the Petro Canada. And they did quite well, actually. They got a number of big jobs. They did the land clearing for Simon Fraser University when they built up top Burnaby Mountain, the Empire Stadium, even the 99 freeway, when it went in back in, I think it was the early 60s when the 99 went in, and they did that big cut through the hill by Morgan, by 32nd Avenue, cutting down through. They did all that excavation. So they did a bunch of jobs around there in the 50s and 60s. Early 50s, there was no hospital around White Rock, right? So the closest hospital was New Westminster. And when my two older brothers, Gary and Ken, were born, so my dad had to drive my mom into New Westminster to have the babies each time, to have the deliveries rather. And so the community got together, and there was a great coming together of the community to say, we need a hospital in White Rock. And all the families, the Hassels, everyone around got together, and my dad's company with his brothers donated all the land clearing for the hospital. I know Mrs. Weatherby donated the land, and my dad and his brothers did all the clearing and excavation for the site. And I know if you're in the emergency, heaven forbid, at Peace Arch, there's still a plaque. I think I've got a picture of it. You walk along the wall if you're waiting there, and you can see the picture. I don't know if, can you see that?
Yes, I can. Yeah.
So there's a picture of them all lined up on their machines back in, I'm going to say, the early 50s.
Yeah.
Everything. Yeah. And so that was quite an occasion to get the hospital out here.
Yeah, and I think, if I can just interrupt you there for a second, I think there were a number of women who formed the Women's Auxiliary in those days, and
right.
They did a baking and all kinds of bake sales to just their anticipation of being able to have a hospital. I think that started in the late 40s, like 47 or so, and they've continued to be a hospital auxiliary, and it continues to make contributions to our hospital today. And certainly,
fantastic. Yeah,
the role that your family played in bringing that tangible part to it was so important, because, as you say, Royal Columbian was a long ways away, and Wally wanted the hospital and White Rock wanted, but I think it was the women and their bake sales and the contributions from your family that actually resulted in eventually coming to White Rock rather than Wally.
Yeah, that's right too. And so I was actually born in Peace Arch in 56. So White Rock wasn't even a city then, right? And I think it was like a 4-room hospital or something like that. But the doctor that delivered me, great guy. His name was Al. I forget his last name. Maybe you can enlighten me on the Al. I think maybe you know someone like that.
I've maybe heard of someone like that. Yeah.
Yeah, your dad, Alan Hogue, delivered me, and I got to tell you, he was the greatest, most caring doctor around. My dad says that when I was delivered, Dr. Hogue drove out to the house, because the men were never at the hospitals in those days. They dropped the mums off and then went home. So Dr. Hogue drove out to the house, says, George, you've got another boy. So that was his third boy. So that the light went on and went, 3 boys. Maybe I should look at getting a farm. So that triggered an idea to go out, and he bought the piece of property, my dad did, out in Hazelmere, right across from Halls Perry School, which is now, many years later, the Archer family bought our property and put in Hazelmere Golf Course. So that was our original homestead farm, or whatever, not homestead, but a farm that we grew up on. So yeah, we were a little bit outside of White Rock in those days, but it was still just such a great time to grow up in White Rock in the 60s. I remember early memories, Dad, Sunday drives, taking us for a drive out to the end of the pier, right? Like hard to believe that cars would be driving out onto the pier. Yeah. I still can't figure out, how did 2 cars pass? Or was it just, there was so few people going out, you could just drive out and wait for the coast to be clear?
Yeah. It was amazing, yeah.
Yeah. But the sea festivals, the parades, sandcastle contests, there was fires on the beach. things like that. Yeah, it was just a great time playing Little League. Grew up down at Semiahmoo Park. That was just a great. I mean, what a great time to be around that area. Do you remember well, you were a baseball coach, but the opening day of Little League season, we'd all gather at is it the Semiahmoo Central Plaza?
Right.
And they would block off 16th Avenue and have a parade with all the Little League teams going right down 16th Avenue, or North Bluff Road, as it was known, all the way down to, I think, Centennial Park is where they would do it. Yeah. So baseball games, the big hit was after you played your game, when you're an 8-year-old, you go down to the A&W drive-in for root beer after the game.
Oh, yes. Great
Yeah.
memories. Yeah.
So I got into music at 8 years old. There was a guy who was actually had a music studio in the Breaks block, Bob Dressler. And he was actually an accordion teacher. So my 2 older brothers had to take accordion. So I pleaded with my mom, please, I don't want to take accordion. Let me play guitar. So that was, the Beatles were out, and it was 60s, and you got to have a guitar. So luckily I got to play the guitar, and I was really delighted. So during my teens, I got into some bands, and with some of the local kids. Our first gig, Semiahmoo Park band shell.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, down in the park, summer day. We just said, hey, let's just go play there and see what happens. So we actually just drove in and brought our guitars and amps and drums and set up in the band shell and played, and went on and just did it. So went on for a couple hours till the cops came and said, there's people complaining. The music, what's going on here? So yeah, that was fun. But we had lots of fun in those days. I don't know if you've ever heard about the Meadow Rock Festival. Did you ever hear about that?
Heard the name of it, yeah.
Yeah, so we were really good friends with some of the First Nations kids too. They hung around, whatever. And we made an arrangement to have a quiet, under the radar rock festival with a bunch of bands for a weekend, right down on the First Nations reserve. But you come in off of Beach Road, and then there's that frontage road, where all the billboards are down by Peace Arch Park. You come in that way, and then you walked about a half a mile in. And so we had probably 14 bands lined up, and they were playing continuously Saturday and Sunday. And it was really just White Rock kids and stuff going, maybe 100 people or so. It was just a lot of fun. But somehow it got out to the FM station at the time. I think it wasn't CFOX. I think it was CFMI FM or LGFM. And the announcer got it onto the radio and put it, hey, there's a rock festival going on. It's right down at the end of 99, right before the border. Well, pretty soon it was like lined up down the 99 freeway, and all these people parking on the side of the freeway, running around, trying to figure out where the music was coming from. And yes, that got shut down too. So, so yeah. Later on, our band, I was at a party at my buddy Jeff's place down in the basement. We were having a party and music and everything, and someone said, hey, Jeff's kid's sister, she's upstairs playing the piano. You should go up and hear her. Jeff's got a kid sister. So I went running upstairs with Gord, our guitar player, and lo and behold, there's Juanita playing the piano, and wow, she's pretty good. And so then all of a sudden she started singing, and we went, oh wow, do you want to join a band? So so we got Juanita into the band, and by that time we were starting to get some pretty good bookings. We had an agent and the whole thing, and we ended up going on touring around BC, and she was only 17 years old, and we were 20 something. And I'm thinking now, parents, like what were her parents thinking, letting a 17-year-old girl go with a bunch of 20-year-olds on tour there? But they knew us all and they trusted us, and it was all good. So yeah, that was fun playing all the breakers and the bird cage. I don't know if you remember the bird cage.
Yeah.
Which was another great club out here in South Surrey, White Rock. I think right now it's on King George Highway by 24th. What's in there? Modern Bradley Collision or something like that.
That's right. Yeah, I think that's
too. So, but we had some good success. We had a recording contract with Mushroom Records, and it was a great time. Hart had just done their Dreamboat Annie with Mushroom, and Jerry Doucette, and all these big groups were coming through, and we were kind of coming into the whole Mushroom Records world of, with all these bands starting to take off, and we were all, oh, this is great, and all, just, it was a lot of fun. But then Shelley Siegel, the owner of Mushroom, passed away, and the whole thing fell apart. And yeah, that was sort of, a glimpse of what could have been. So yeah, so over the years, I've had a number of recording studios, and fast forward sort of into the 2000s, I had a recording studio at a building in Surrey, and the building was sold, and so I had to move the studio out of the building that it was. And I was looking around, and Doug Johnson, whose family owned the building that Blue Frog is in, had a beautiful studio, Rock Beach, and they had done well, but it was kind of at the end of the big record recording contract era, when Napster and all these download companies were kind of coming on, and it was sort of the end of the golden years of recording. So he was getting out of the business, and so I approached Doug Johnson, and we took over the Blue Frog. It was a Rock Beach, but we moved in, and I moved all my gear into the building, and yeah, it was a great place to go. Just thinking, so one of the big questions I get asked is, well, where did the name Blue Frog come from? And we needed a name, and we were trying to play with things. We were talking to our kids, and what should we call this? White Rock Recording Studios. Well, that's boring, and all these crazy names. And then one day, Dave Hayes, who helped build the studio with Doug Johnson, came by and he says, I've got a studio warming gift for you guys. And he pulls out this great big blue frog that hangs on our wall in our lobby. And we went, that's it. Blue Frog Studios. It was a natural. So yeah, that was 2010. Yeah, so we started doing recordings and demos, and we had our own albums and songs that we were working on at the time, and we were doing our own stuff. And we came up with this idea, maybe we should do a songwriters circle, like have a songwriters come in and teach people about songwriting. And so we planted the idea of that. A few months later, we got wind that Dan Hill, who's a Grammy award-winning songwriter, he had the big hit Sometimes When We Touch. He was coming out to the West Coast, and so we approached his management. We said, "Hey, would you like to do a show in a recording studio with a ticketed audience?" And yeah, okay, yeah. He came in. So we went around, we printed tickets up, and we went around and we were selling tickets. Well, the tickets sold out in 2 days. We went, oh, that's cool, right? So we went, and I got a hold of Dan Hill's management, and I said, look, can you do another show? There was demand. So yeah, okay, sure. That one sold out in another day or two. So then we went can you do a third night? Yeah, okay. Boom, sold out. So I said, I guess fourth night, he said, look, I got a gig in Edmonton on that night. I gotta go. But we kind of knew we were onto something with doing live shows in a recording studio, so this is the studio with the perfect acoustics, and it's a great place to see a band. So we started booking other acts. We got Alfie Zappa Costa, and we started doing them every month, and then those were going great guns. So then we said, well, let's do them every week. We'll become recording studio by the day, and on weekends we'll do a show, kind of thing. Well, that kept going till once every week to two times a week, 3, sometimes 4. We've had shows where we've done like 14 shows in a row with some of the groups. It gets crazy. And so the live shows have now way overtaken the recording business for us here too. So we're probably doing over 200 shows a year. Well, we were pre-COVID. So, but yeah, so that's going good.
You also expanded, you've done some work in terms of participating with concerts on the beach and work on that. Can you talk a little bit about how that evolved and your contributions to that?
Well, yeah, I've always been active participant with the BIA and supportive of them. And, I try to help out, whenever I can. And they were doing the concerts at the beach and getting the, how can I say it? They were bringing in kind of more avant-garde artists, that had made, they were great artists, but not really drawing. So they were saying, we want to make it a bit bigger and go a bit more high profile. So I got involved along with Rob Warwick, who's with Rocket Boy Productions, who's a great promoter who also lives in White Rock. And we started saying, okay, what sort of, what are the groups, that will draw, that we'd like to go out and see too, kind of thing. So we started bringing in Chilliwack and, some bigger, just a bunch of bigger, higher name groups. And we would use our contacts of touring groups that were coming across the country to find out when they're going to be in the Vancouver area, so we could kind of drop them into White Rock and pick up a gig. So we've been able to get some pretty high profile names at a good value price, to play at the beach. And the crowds have been receiving it quite well. I mean, 2 years ago, I think we hit probably 6,000 or 7,000 people, some of the shows, almost becoming too successful, right? So
yeah, that's been an incredible contribution. And also, you've connected with Austin City Limits and other areas in terms of some of the broadcasts you've had. And can you talk a little bit about that outreach that you've done around the world as well?
Well, yeah, we the shows keep selling out, and so we looked at ways to, how can we expand the reach? So, well, we can't put any more people in. We're limited. We're pretty much full up with doing as many shows as we can. So we've always been, forward looking on the technology. And we've had over the years various video companies come in to video some of the concerts. So we said, well, that's the next natural step. Let's get into doing video. So we installed all the cameras and the broadcast equipment and things like that to actually live stream. So in 2014, it was April, I think 2014, we got we made a deal with the San Francisco group Jefferson Airplane. They're the old White Rabbit and all those group, and they were playing in Bellingham. And so we got them to come up to do a live stream for Earth Day in 2014, and that was our inaugural live stream. And yeah, it went really well, and we went, hey, this could be the future, right? So we've just been working on live streaming. So we started doing our own live streams free on Facebook Live and doing things like that. And some of the shows we were getting 40,000 people watching it on there, and from all over the world, like in Europe, Australia, uh, Saudi Arabia, Asia, Japan, all over. And yeah, it was quite interesting to see how that all went. So we've actually expanded that to actually make it a higher quality, because on Facebook Live, it kind of the video quality and the audio quality is not as good as what we want to put out there. So that's why we also created our Blue Frog TV, which is really high video and technical specifications to give an audience experience. And so where that's developed into is people have home theaters and they want to stream it at home, so people can enjoy this as close as you can get to being their concert at home with full-blown video. So
Yeah, one of my, they should talk about the outreach. One of my favorite stories is a friend of mine was traveling in Ireland, and he was sitting in a pub with some people, some Irish people sitting chatting away, and they asked him where he was from, and he said White Rock. He said, White Rock. Oh, you mean Blue Frog Studio? And that was the connection that they had. And so he came back saying, well, Blue Frog Studio, it's in Ireland, and they know about it all over the world. And you just reflected on that. So it's been a great publicity for our community in such a positive way.
Well, and we always try to announce like live from White Rock. We always try to put White Rock in there to keep White Rock on the map as well too, and let people know where it's coming from.
Have there been some people and as you reflect on your life and how you've got to where you are now, some people that you saw as kind of inspirational, who encouraged you and were the kind of people who thought, I've got confidence in Kelly and let's go off and build on something? And some people that might stand out in terms of kind of support they provided you over the years?
Well, yeah, I know some of the recording people, that I've dealt with. They as a songwriter or record producer, you're always, kind of timid. Okay, should I put this out there? And what do they think? And you're very self-conscious about that. And some of them, like guys like Dave Hayes or Pat Glover, no, that's great. And we just got to change this a little bit, and we can make it even better. How they do it. Some of that. Really, a guy back when we were in the 2000s, and we were just doing our own recording, and we were doing an album, and we were again trying to kind of find our way and doing stuff, was Dave Chesney. Very, very supportive of the music industry. He knows everyone in the business, being an A&R with major record companies and signing Stevie Ray Vaughan. So he's always been very good with feedback. Yeah, you've got me stumped on trying to think of someone else on that one.
Well, I think when you describe your father and down at Five Corners, and then there's a music studio, and you get connected there. It's almost like that was fate that you were going to get into it, and then fighting because you didn't want to play the accordion to get to the guitar, and being able to do
Nothing against accordions,
Nothing against accordions, but it just didn't fit for you at that time. So that's really interesting to look at your growth out of Five Corners and your dad's connection there, and how that happened, even though he wanted to build a 2-story high-rise at that point in time.
Yeah. No, the whole music thing, though, we've been blessed to have the artists and the crowds over the last 10 years. I think of some artists that are just amazing: Jim Burns or Bill Henderson from Chilliwack, Alfie Zappa Costa, Maria Muldaur. Do you remember her? Midnight at the Oasis. She came here once, and yes, she's still going at it. And I'm amazed that these are artists that were big back in the 60s, some of them, and they're still out there doing it. And it's a testament to how music feeds your soul, right? And it keeps you going, and that's really what we love is is bringing, having people with great music come in, and the audience come in, and you see the people's faces light up, and they're just, as soon as they come through the door, they put their troubles behind them, and music kind of just really just makes you, what's the word, lightens things up for you anyways, so.
Now, you and Juanita have made a great contribution to this community and obviously around the world with the connections that you've had there. But I don't think that just comes from an understanding of music. I think it has a lot to do with your personality, and the two of you are so welcoming with people and so good with people. And that's such an important part of being able to grow a business and be connected in a community, is you have to be engaged in it, you have to care about it, and your caring and reflection shine through clearly anytime anybody visits Blue Frog or sees you or Juanita on the street. You've got that kind of compassion and caring that just shines through, and probably goes back to your dad and to lots of connections, and to Juanita's family as well, in terms of the kind of engagements that they've had in the development of community and the caring that they've all shown. So it's a great tribute to the two of you and to our community that we have you and Blue Frog here and doing the things. Do you see how do you see the future evolving, given that there are certain challenges that go in terms of where we are? If you had to project into the future, are there any directions you see Blue Frog going, or some of the things that you would see off into the glazing into the crystal ball of the future?
Well, I definitely think that there's going to be more live streaming. It's just a fact, like that. It's probably going to be 2 years before the live entertainment industry gets back up to full production. So there's got to be sort of a hybrid of what's going to happen in between now and a bridge, so to speak, where we'll have live streaming with a limited audience, where we can keep the safety protocols completely in place. I mean, that's what we're having to do right now. We've changed our whole theater from a theater type seating to more of a nightclub setting with tables and barriers in between each table, so it's completely safe. So, but anyways, I would think to make the numbers work and to go into the future, probably more live streaming for people to go at home and watch the shows, because again, a lot of people just are not comfortable about going out right now, kind of thing. But yeah, I'd like to do more shows. I'd like to get some big names coming through, but also help some of the independent bands that are coming up, to help get them recognition. I would like to do more inroads into some of the markets around the world, such as Europe. Like we have local people that live out here, and they play in Germany to 100,000 people in their groups, and but they play here, and she's a soccer mom, and can walk down the street, but wouldn't sell 100 tickets here. So it's always getting the name out and getting people aware in other places. So eventually, when they return to touring, there will be other venues for them to perform at as well too.
That's wonderful. Well, Kelly, you and the Breaks family have made enormous contributions to the evolution and growth and caring of our community. And thank you so very much for telling us the narrative, the story of your family and the wonderful contributions you've made. It's been a pleasure having you on Community Connections. Thanks.
Okay,
Thank you for joining us today on Community Connections. Please tune in to our next show as more amazing people share their wonderful stories. If you haven't already, please click on the red subscribe button below, right down there, and view our updates. Feel free to leave any thoughts or comments that you may have. We're always trying to do a better job of connecting this wonderful community. Thanks again for joining, and until next time, keep connecting. Thank you.